So the meeting is being recorded. Welcome everybody to the Instructional Design and Learning Special Interest Group SIG. We have a webinar once a month, and this month's webinar, the webinar for August, today is August the 18th, is a sort of a rebroadcast and also some fresh material of the lightning talks that we had at the summit. So if you were at the summit, some of these might look familiar to you. If you weren't with us at the summit, this will be something new and fun. Mellissa and Robert came up with two brand new lightning talks. Now the format of a lightning talk is that you have 20 slides. You put the animation on your slides and set every slide so that it changes every 15 seconds. So it's a really fast-paced, hopefully a very interesting format, and we have some really great speakers. Hang on a minute, let me get my, I'm sharing my desktop.
Vicki, I don't need to share anything, right? I just talk to the slides that are going. Okay, good. Thanks.
That's right. So we have great, oops, Adobe Connect is hiding my thing. Okay. So today we're going to have lightning talks by Kit, Vicky, Jamie, Mellissa, and Robert. And I'm Vicky. I'm going to start them off. That way I can get my mind back on running the meeting. Then after I talk, Robert is going to talk about what are you thinking, which is a talk about brains. And then Jamie's going to recreate her presentation that she did at the summit, a loopy yarn, in which if you could have seen her at the summit, she actually knitted while she was on stage. It was really super. Then Mellissa is going to present her talk, Speakeasy. And then Kit is our cleanup batter. She's going to talk about everything I learned from leadership, I learned from Star Trek, right? So I'm going to then start talk number one. Y'all wish me luck.
Good luck.
Good luck, Vicky.
Good luck.
All right, so my name is Vicky Dill. I'm an STC senior member, and this lightning talk is called You Stink at Email. Why did you spend time writing something that nobody wants to read? And in that, we're going to talk about business emails, the process of how one decides whether or not they're going to actually read an email or whether or not they're going to delete it. Maybe they'll scan it, but a lot of our emails are not being read. And after that, we're going to talk about my coworker, Christy, who does a really good job of writing email. So you've done it, and I've done it. There's even a hashtag, TLDR, too long, didn't read. And why do we not read those emails? Well, because we get too much email, and they're badly written. Now, maybe we feel bad about not reading the email. After all, the email didn't write itself, and there's probably something in there that you should know about. But we made the decision not to open up that email and not read it. And why? Because your email stinks. There are a number of reasons that your email could stink. It could be too long. It could be too short. It could be just badly organized. It could be badly written. It could have a stupid subject line. A lot of times I'll get an email with the subject line, quick question, and I know it's not going to be a quick question, or good morning, and it tells me nothing about the content of the email. So try to be specific in your subject line, because that's what your reader is going to see first. Now, back in the third grade, I learned how to write a newspaper article, right? Who, what, when, where, why, and to put the most important thing first. And that's what we need to do in our emails. Now, if your email is too short, a lot of times when someone's forwarding an email, they will make their part of the email too short, and it will not help you understand why you should read it, like FYI or see below. I'm not generally going to read those because I don't want to do your reading for you. Sometimes an email will have too much of the history. How did I come to make this decision? And it will be too early in the email. You need to put your call to action right up front so that people can see it right away and continue reading. Sometimes you make me look things up. If you're referring to something that is contained online, I want a link. I don't want to have to look it up, because if you make me look it up, I'm not going to. Reply all is very powerful. We have all made the mistake of replying all when we shouldn't have, or not replying all when we should have. If you need to have a lengthy conversation with a group, though, use a blog, use Yammer, use Facebook. So this is my coworker, Christy. She is a network specialist, which means she writes important emails to several thousand readers, and they usually get read. And here's why. First thing is a well-crafted subject line. A subject line is typically the first thing that somebody will scan when they're trying to make a decision as to whether or not they'll continue reading. Another thing, you want to make sure that your call to action is up front. Please read, if you receive this email, please delete it. So the call to action is in the preview of the email, and that way people will be able to decide whether or not they're going to continue reading. A lot of us read on the run. I probably read 90% of my email on my smartphone, and that's typically where I delete things that I want to go back and read later. A small amount of preview, you want to make sure your message is in the preview. Now, if people will actually open the email and look at the body of the email, you want to make sure that it's easily scanned. We tend to do more scanning now than we do reading. If you want people to remember something later, it's a good idea to use a graphic. In this email we're talking about, Christy used a graphic of the email she wanted you to delete. That way, if you see it later, your visual memory will remember, hey, this is significant, and you'll be more likely to respond to the call to action. And then you end with an invitation. If you need some help, call this number, email this person. So this is one last picture of Christy, the good email writer. She is a marathon runner, and this is a picture of her. This is the building I work in. In fact, I'm right here in that conference room right there. I don't know if you can. So that was my lightning talk, 20 slides, 5 minutes. I'm Viqui Dill. Connect with me. So, all right, so that's over, yay. Now coming up, we've got Robert Hershenow, and he's going to tell us about our brains. Robert?
Tell me, 1, 2, 3, go.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, go.
Your brain represents about 2% of your body weight, but uses about 20% of the energy you consume. Why? What are you thinking? Let's take a look at some of the surprising ways in which our brains work and how we can use that knowledge to do good things. Your brain is pretty much always on, even when you're asleep. Besides keeping your heart beating and your lungs breathing, it's constantly organizing, sorting, indexing, connecting the bits of data that make up your knowledge and memories. And that's nothing compared to when you're awake, when it works really hard. So your brain needs lots of energy, and it needs regular maintenance, which means that your top job is to get enough good food to eat, and your other top job is to get some exercise. Here's why. Your brain runs on glucose, which you get from food, and a lot of it because it runs hot. You need a balanced diet. You have about 100 billion neurons in your brain, but only 2% of them can fire at once, because any more than that would deplete your glucose supply and you'd pass out. So you need to eat. Burning all that glucose, though, creates waste, which would poison you, except that it binds to oxygen in your blood and is swept away and converted to carbon dioxide, which you breathe out. So you need exercise to maintain respiratory and circulatory health. Take a walk. Take a walk every day if you can. Our senses evolved to work together. So pictures plus sounds are better than either one alone, for example. But we need to understand the information we're getting in order to retain it. It's hard to memorize something we don't get. So if you teach, provide meaningful examples. Your brain is a trickster. It creates your conscious perceptions by combining what's happening right now with memories of previous experiences, which can help you keep your hand off the stove, but what your brain tells you you're seeing isn't 100% accurate. Vision uses half of your brain's resources. It's little wonder that we learn and remember best through pictures. But to keep us from being constantly distracted, the brain filters what we see. And that's why we sometimes miss what's right in front of us, like the car keys we're looking for. That's why people in an experiment were asked to count the number of passes in a basketball game, and they didn't even notice a man in a gorilla suit walking across the court. Emotionally arousal is key to getting and keeping someone's attention, and that's good for about 10 minutes before they need a new story or something shiny to grab them again. As for multitasking, we all know that's a myth, right? Don't be fooled. It's just a series of distractions. Initially, memories are short-term, temporary. We have limited capacity for storing them, and unless we convert them to long-term format, they disappear. The conversion process happens through repetition and review over time. So if you want to remember something, repeat it. Your brain is vigorously active when you sleep, and lack of sleep hurts everything. Attention, reason, mood, decision-making, even motor dexterity. Different people have different needs, but everyone has a biological drive for an afternoon nap. Stress can actually help learning because it wakes us up and gets us moving. But chronic stress is debilitating, causing health problems, interfering with learning at school and productivity at work. Unfortunately, modern classroom and office environments often induce stress. On a lighter note, people with synesthesia perceive unusual sensations such as flavors associated with sounds and colors associated with words. I'm told my name, Robert, is orange. I say, play me a song that tastes like chicken. And look, here's the alien hand syndrome, which is actually a condition that can occur after brain damage in which patients feel that their movements are not always initiated by them. Their hand might unzip their jacket that they just zipped up. But if your brain is relatively healthy, you can easily improve its functionality and your overall health simply by chilling out. And an excellent way to do that is by practicing mindfulness, meditation. Anyone can do it. You don't have to be a hippie or a Buddhist. And long-term practitioners have shown enlargement of the prefrontal cortex where cognition takes place and shrinkage of the amygdala, the region associated with anxiety and fear. Meditation can even reduce the need for sleep. So if you're a teacher or a trainer, relax. Let your learners relax. Give them rich, repetitive, multisensory experiences. They'll be more inclined to get it and also to remember what they got. If you're a manager, relaxing is also good. So take care of yourself, and your brain will thank you. Get enough food and exercise and rest. If you can, take a siesta, even for 5 minutes. It's natural. If you want to teach somebody something, don't be boring, but do be repetitive, and give meditation a shot. If you'd like more details on any of the surfaces I've barely scratched here today, this book, Brain Rules by John Medina, is a great place to start. Or check the website, brainrules.net. I'm Robert Hershenow. Thank you so much.
Good job.
Yay. Thank you, Robert. That was pretty awesome. Now, number 3. You want to give me a countdown?
Actually, somebody raised their hand. James, did you have a question? Oh, he's typing something.
Okay. Because I'm sharing my
it was an
desktop.
accident. Okay, it was accidental. Okay, I'll have the countdown.
So an accidental hand raising. That would be alien hand raising syndrome, right? 3, 2, 1, go, James.
All right. I'm Jamye Sagan. Here's a yarn about yarn and technical communication. What do these two fields have in common? Actually, they have about 6 things in common. So we'll cover those 6 items throughout this presentation. So the first thing is knowing your audience. In TechCom, all the materials that we produce, we have to keep our audience in mind. Whether it's a big manual for engineers or a cheat sheet for customers, we have to write materials with our audience in mind. Knitting's no exception. So I made my brother this superwash wool hat for a hunting trip. I made it out of superwash wool because I know he's not going to line dry stuff. He can stick this in the washing machine and dryer without any harm. Now, on the other hand, I made this shawl for my mom out of wool that you have to line dry. And I knew that she does not wear hats, so I made her a shawl because I knew that she would wear it. And those are her favorite colors, too. So I kept my audience in mind when I knit. Second thing, budget. So in TechCom, we deal with budgets, whether it's with skills, time, or money. And knitting is no exception. We have to deal with budgets all the time. For example, for this little whale thing, I found out about the baby shower for my coworker 48 hours in advance, so I had very little time to make something for her. So I got some thick yarn, made this whale, took a couple of hours. Mama loved it. Whereas with this blanket I made for my niece, I had at least 4 months of advance notice. So I had the time and resources to make all those panels with the hearts and the skulls and the pink squares. I sewed the panels together, edged them, voila. The third common thread of knitting your TechCom, we deal with pictures. So in TechCom, we use illustrations and diagrams to illustrate key concepts. And in knitting, we do the same thing. So with knitting, this is a knitting pattern. So the pattern has written abbreviations and a lot of text. It tells you what you need to do for each row. So that can be a little complicated. This one's simple, but there are written patterns that are much more complicated. Whereas if it's charted, it takes up much less space. You can actually see what the design is, and it's much easier to edit from a technical editing perspective. And as you can tell, we're keeping with the Star Trek theme. Fourth common thread, simple tools, fantastic results. So some of us may not have access to the latest tools in e-learning or anything with TechCom, but what's important is our skills in analyzing data. Gee, for knitting, no exception. So you have some needles that cost $17, $20. You have needles that cost $4 or $5. But can you tell what you actually did? No. With that hat right there with the wonky hat, I used the expensive needles. Okay, fifth thread, piloting. So we all know in TechCom we pilot our materials to make sure that we're going on the right track. And that way we don't waste resources or time. Knitting is no exception. So what you see right here is a swatch square. This is a square to make sure that you have just the right amount of stitches per row and stitches per inch, because if you're off by a little bit, you end up with a garment that could fit either the Incredible Hulk or a Papa Smurf. So if you swatch, pre-work pays off. You get a nice fitting garment. That way you can wear it with pride, and if you were at the summit, I actually showed it off. But here you can see it in its pictorial glory. So do the work beforehand. You may not want to do it, but do it. And the last common thread, do sweat the small details, because in TechCom, we edit and revise our materials. We apply formatting to make sure that our information is easy to comprehend, and it just makes it look more polished. Take for example, that scarf on the left. It looks all sloppy because I didn't weave in the ends, whereas on the right, I did, and it looks much neater and it's much prettier. So in knitting, we do what's called blocking, in which you wet the material and you spread it out. This is especially important for lace because off the needles, it looks like a giant heap of yarn spaghetti. But when it dries, you get, voila, blocking magic, lace. So you can see the lace pattern, it's all pretty, and the blocking also evens out the stockinette stitch, which is the non-lace part. So blocking really makes a difference in terms of project magic. So here's my contact information, and just think about your own favorite hobbies and how they relate to TechCom. Do you deal with details? Do you test out your material before unleashing it to the masses? Do you sweat the small details? Thank you.
Yay, Jamie. Awesome. So yeah, I liked the summit version of that because you actually knitted while you watched the slides while you talked to us. That was just so cool. For all we know, you're knitting right now.
No, I'm not. Actually, I was pointing to the screen and kind of, gesturing while I was doing so. So the webcam would have been pretty cool.
So next up is a brand new presentation by Mellissa. She and Robert are our fearless IDL SIG leaders, and now she's going to lay some wisdom on us. And I did preview these slides. They're really funny. Ready, Mellissa?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted you to know that I'm not picking on any one particular race or faction, and everybody is going to get it throughout this process. And I also didn't include any information about how to contact me afterwards because I'm not sure anybody's going to be talking to me afterwards. Everyone, including animals, are fair game through this presentation. But I have to admit, I like doing this better on the computer because I actually get to see the slides. When people are doing these lightning talks at the summit, they don't get to see what's happening, and they just have to be ready to go. So I'm using the analogy of the travel around the world here because we're going to be going around the world with different languages and showing you some typos. You know, we're going to have many fun here, and so I want you to please buy much financial special fares. Yes. When we're tourists, of course, English is the most common language around the world, not so much because of numbers of speakers. I think the Chinese win on that, but just because it's prevalent. But that doesn't make it easy to learn or use. Lots of times when you're traveling, you're looking for someplace to eat. And I dare you to try to pick out some of these things to eat or be willing to eat them. Oh my God, what would a unique chicken smell taste like? That's what I want to know. Possibly try this place. I also tried to make this presentation safe for work, so there are a lot of things that I left out. Eating a cowboy leg, I'm not sure. I think it's a turkey leg, maybe. But crab is often shown as crap, so make sure that you look for the B's. We do want to be good guests, so we're not going to be louding. No louding whatsoever. Also, no bawdry and wench. Don't shake your elbows. You know, don't out. No selling poison. But we could maybe instead, or after we leave the hotel, go for a nice walk. Yes, in the garden. Don't steal. Don't fall off anything. Don't walk on the grass. Enjoy, cherish every tree and blade of grass which entertain you to joy and happiness. Indeed. Maybe a trip to the zoo. You know, panda droppings apparently are very, very fragrant. And even if you are a good English writer, speaker, you can still get a couple mess-ups with lacking commas or semicolons. We could take snacks instead of going to a recipe and going to a restaurant. Can you tell I didn't practice this? I was too scared to. Complicated food. Simple to eat, complicated to make. That would be Microsoft Binbos. And I don't know how you abuse a plastic bag, but you have to pay to do that. When they say don't touch yourself, they mean don't touch it yourself. Never mind. Never mind. You'll get it later. If you have psychosis disease or stupid disease, you're not allowed to play here. No stupid disease. No carrying edible or beverages in the naughty palace either. Then there's always the issue of having to find a toilet when you need it. Because when you need to go, you need to go. I'm so glad at least one person's laughing. You're not supposed to laugh at your own jokes, sorry. These aren't mine, of course, but also I think I did this wrong because I put 20 seconds per slide, and I think it's only supposed to 15, but wouldn't you like to eat a snack called BM? 10 hours a day, paste one of these things on your tummy. a long time. It's just so bad because English has so many possible meanings, you know, homonyms and synonyms and things that are spelled the same but mean something totally different. I would hate to have to learn English. I really, really would.
What?
That's the old horny is the hard part of your heel. After you rub the horny. Okay, the hula hoop one is the one that I actually took the picture. I found it at a dollar store. Once owned, nothing can instead. That's a hula hoop that you can put together. It's a traveling hula hoop. I think I want one. And I'm really not sure the one on the left, what they meant. But thank you. Goodbye. Thank you for listening, watching, because something wonderful is about to happen. All done.
Well, that deserves a big round of applause. I have tears coming out of my eyes.
Oh, yes.
There's more.
Why? One more little thought. You can spell fish, goatee, G-H-O-T-I. G-H as in rough, I as in women, and T-I as sh as in nation. Did you know that? Why, English? Why? Thank you.
So that was like an encore. We'll give you some more.
Curtain. It's from laughing. Thank you.
So it's a special treat for everybody's coworkers.
Yeah.
If you're in a big office.
Happy, wonderful. Thank you.
So, for those of you who missed the summit, Kit Brown-Hoekstra did a wonderful talk sharing some of her leadership philosophy and comparing it to some of the backstories in Star Trek, and it was really awesome. And I was so delighted that she said yes when we asked her to do her lightning talk again. So, Ms. Kit, are you ready? Ms. Kit, are you muted?
Yes, I was.
Okay. So 3, 2, 1.
And now for something completely different. I gave this talk originally at the summit, as Vicky said. I've been a long-time Star Trek fan. I started watching it when I was a little kid with my dad, the original series. And over the years, I realized that a lot of the leadership knowledge that I gained was from the Star Trek series. And if you think about the Enterprise, it's a self-contained environment where there are project teams and there are different groups working together. So you can kind of look at that as the universe of a project team. And those are led by the captains. And if you think about the different captains, each of them have their own strengths and weaknesses. Kirk was very action-oriented. Jean-Luc Picard was very cerebral, whereas Janeway was kind of in between. And so, with the leadership style, it's really important that their first mate or the second in command kind of complements that captain. So the counterbalance to Kirk was Spock's very logical. Riker was kind of an attempt to bring in that. Chakotay was a balance to Janeway. And then when you're thinking about setting up your team, first contact is really important. That first meeting, that kickoff meeting, really makes a huge difference in the tone that you set for the entire project, and it can go well or poorly. And as you're building your team, it's really important to think about how can I build my team in such a way that I have the right blend of personalities, the right blend of skills, and so that everyone is working from their strengths. And Star Trek does a really good job of this because in their universe, everyone gets to do the job that they're best at. And everybody's job has a clearly defined role. If you don't have a clearly defined role, you might be a red shirt. And, you know, one of the challenges that you have is that the red shirts, if you're familiar at all with Star Trek, end up dying a lot. So don't be a red shirt. Because if you don't know what your role is, go to your manager and say, okay, I need help understanding how I fit in with this team. I need help understanding how I can work better with everyone, because otherwise you're going to die. Maybe not literally, but figuratively. The other thing that Star Trek does a good job of is turning enemies into friends. In the original series, the Klingons were the enemies. By Next Generation, Worf was a key member of the team, and they valued his skills, although he seemed to get beat up a lot for a Klingon. At the same time, you have to recognize the difference between somebody who maybe comes from a different background or a different worldview of you and has the common goal, the higher goal of the team in mind, versus somebody who's just toxic and crazy, like Khan. And if they're a narcissist, you get them off your team. You don't want them. Because your goal as a leader is to get everybody going toward the same larger goal, which in the case of Star Trek is exploring new worlds. In the case of a project team, it's building a new product. And in that course of exploration, you always have to have a plan B. So you don't panic when you get sucked into a wormhole and spit out in another quadrant of the galaxy. You have a plan for risk management and for disaster planning. And you can keep going. And then if the rules don't work, change the rules. That's the lesson of the Kobayashi Maru. When Kirk couldn't beat the system, he changed the rules. So if your processes aren't working, change your processes. Processes are meant to help you do your job more efficiently. If they're not doing that, then stop doing it and do something else. Listen and trust your team members. You hired these people, or you gathered them together as a team because of their expertise. So don't stop listening to them when you bring them on. Listen and trust what they say, and communicate, communicate, communicate. Uhura was always lecturing Kirk to always have an open channel of communication when he was on a away mission. As a leader, especially on a virtual team, it's really important to be proactive in that communication and make sure that everybody's talking. Silence is not good. The other thing that's really important is to underpromise and overdeliver. You know, if one Tribble is good, then two are better, right? Up to a point. So there's a balance there, and if you get out of balance, then you have to back off a little bit. But underpromise and overdeliver. And one of the difficult things about being a leader is sometimes you have to make tough decisions. Hopefully it's not life and death like Kirk had to make with Spock. But, you know, sometimes we have to lay people off. Sometimes we have to change team members. So you have to be able to make those tough decisions for the greater good. But at the same time, it's really important to be compassionate. Ideally, you want people to be successful even if they can't be successful on your particular team. You want to help them and provide them with the guidance where they can be successful in their lives. One of the best books about team management is The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. So if you have trust, you have the ability to have conflict, you have commitment to the larger goals, you have accountability, you will get results. So in conclusion, I want to remember that different situations require different leadership styles. No one leadership style is good or bad. Pick a first mate whose style complements yours, and then trust people to do their jobs. Put people in a position where they can use their strengths. Make sure that you're getting rid of those toxic people. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Kit.
You're welcome.
I think you get the prize for the best animation. I like that space wipe, whatever it's called.
Yeah, it's moving a little slower with on the Adobe Connect than it did in person, so it was a little distracting.
Yeah. This is our first and perhaps our last time to do these lightning talks.
That's right, they're not being offered next time.
Right. Which doesn't mean we couldn't do our own. But
yeah, we can have a lightning talk night, couldn't we?
absolutely
people,
could.
Yeah. Get together and do their own.
Mm-hmm. So before I stop the recording, I just wanted to have a blatant commercial. So this was the lightning talks were the August offering of the IDL SIG, and in September, on September 15th, we're going to have a TechCom showcase featuring Jamye Sagan and Lori Meyer. Jamye is going to talk about lessons from her cat, about instructional design, and Lori's going to talk about the editor as collaborator. So stay tuned. You can get to that through the IDL SIG website, and we'll be opening the sign-ups in just a few minutes. I believe there was a question in the chat window about whether or not we would get the slides. Yes, we will be sharing the slides. There'll be a link in the email that you'll get probably around 4 o'clock this afternoon. There'll be a link to the recording of the webinar, and there'll be a link to all the slides. So thank you, everybody. Let's do one more time. We'll do a round of applause for all of our fine speakers, and especially for all of our fine attendees. And thank you guys for all your support.
Thank you. This was wonderful.